you know, if I took it off of mute when I started, it would go smoothly, wouldn't it? So, hey, welcome. This is going to be your SITREP. It is 11 a.m. Central Time, coming to you from the great state of Texas. And we are going to be taking a look at a lot of different things today. Some interesting stuff going on out there, no doubt about it. By the way, if you are looking for something for your Father's Day gift, jump on over here to monkeywerxus.com. And if you jump into the shop and use this code FATHER10, that's FATHER10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And that is everything on the site. And this is actually, the sale's going to run until midnight Father's Day. So 6/18, and a lot of cool stuff out there. As a matter of fact, we got some cool aprons that you can see here for barbecuing, and that's actually embroidered onto the apron. We've even got one that's American flag that's in the shape of the Monkey Werx logo here, like this right here. But nonetheless, 10% off store-wide. So if you would just jump out there and support the shop and the show and Papacito, okay? All right, hey, let's jump over here to our mini board as we get started here today. By the way, man, you want to talk about some big hail in Texas from a weather perspective. This is probably the biggest I think I've ever seen. But to just give you a general idea, when I tell you that hail in Texas is big, this is what we got here last night. And that, my friends, is me holding what is a grapefruit size or softball size hail. And it's not good. It destroys roofs, cars. In fact, up until about 10 minutes before the show started, I was out climbing on my wife's F-250 that has a lift, so I can't reach it from the ground. I had to climb up on it to basically tape off her sunroof that got blown out. Hood is toast. Yeah, it's not good. But that right there is that's a home wrecker if you've ever seen one. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because that's some big hail. I hear people talking about, oh, we got ping pong size hail, and that's big. But Texas, this is insane. So anyway, all right, let's get over here to what we're looking at in the skies. It is currently 204 up. We've already taken out the trainers. We only have 12 T-38s, 44 Tex 2s. But once we remove them, cleans up a little bit of that clutter there. Now, the big thing that we look at here are going to be air refuelers, which we'll pop this in live and let that marinate for a second. Let me go down and see if we got any DC-10s in the air. Don't see any. Got a drone up. I'll make sure I've got that one captured so I can add it to the quiver. And we got a KC-135, 13 of those, so a grand total of 20 air refuelers currently up. And if I throw in a little bit of what's over on across the drink, that'll give us 6 of those. And let's go. I'm going to just hit the traces here. Now, keep in mind, these traces are basically taking everything that is in the air and following it in 5-second increments. So that's just one of the amazing things that Skyglass does. So okay, now it's doing a little thinking for me here, but you can see got a lot started up here in the middle of the U.S. Those guys will fan out across the United States. You can see one already headed southbound. They like to come down here to the border and kind of loiter, and then it looks like you've got an A3220. That's a French one coming across the drink. That may or may not be an air refueler. So when I throw the A300 Airbuses in, it's kind of a bag of mixed tricks. So let's go over to Europe real fast. We'll take a look and see what we've got air refueler-wise. Keep in mind, we've got a major exercise kicking off today with a metric ton of fighters, around 200 of them. So the skies right now over this general area are going to be chock full of fighters. So this is probably the largest amount of air refuelers we have seen at any given point when we look over into Europe, and that is because there are a lot of fighters up right now. So again, it just kind of validates what we say when we see these air refuelers, that is a good indicator of fighters being in the region. So all right, we will leave that alone. Let's go over here and take a look at our watch list for today. And I will tell you the survey flights are definitely down this morning, maybe due to some weather, depending on the regions they're looking in, but there is just not a lot of survey flights out there. That one I just showed you, that A124, that is one of the world's largest aircraft in the world. World's largest in the world, yeah. I didn't think about that before I said it, but anyway, that is an Antonov, and they come into the United States, a Russian manufactured aircraft. They come into the U.S. from time to time. There's a surveys. There's a little that is a Q9 drone that is up, as well as a survey flight. And a couple little Navy P-8s look to be headed kind of northwest. And then that, again, survey flights. But again, hardly any up this morning compared to what we normally see. Usually it is chock full. Another survey flight right there for you. But yeah, sky's usually just full of them. It looks like when I looked at the 3-day survey numbers, we're going to look at that together here in a second, that number has actually declined as well over the last 3 days. So we could see this starting to taper off. Time will tell. We'll just continue to watch it. But there you go. More survey flights in the area, and that's a little AWACS E3 Sentry that is up, NATO E3 Sentry. And let's hop down, see if we got anything down in Australia. We do have one aircraft up. We'll talk about that in just a second. Actually, let's talk about it now. That's actually a Chinese aircraft coming out of Sydney, headed back. Notice where it has traveled to, which I find interesting because it has stopped off there in, I'm looking at this upside down, I feel like, or sideways, but that one is Taiwan. I do know that, but there's your aircraft right there. So China Air. Okay, now let's go to the next item on our list, which is going to be the drones. And you can see that's looks probably a Q9, could be a Q4. That is definitely looking at the border along southern Arizona and then also out over the water. And that's it for the United States. Again, last 3 days, so it was kind of a light weekend, really was, on everything. And then check this out. This is right there in the Baltic Sea region off the coast of Estonia, a little drone activity. And then we get down here a little further south, and you can see we've got what could be, and I'm not sure if this is a Q9 or a Q4 drone that has taken off out of the Malta area. But we'll watch that for a few minutes here, and how about a few seconds? There we go. Let's get over here to C-17 traffic. Again, lighter than usual, but you can see a little bit there in southern Spain, and when we get up a little north, we've got activity in Slovakia over to the left corner of it. It looks like Luxembourg, 2 little spots in Luxembourg, a little bit of stuff going in and out of England. Then we get up here further to Estonia and Lithuania, 2 areas. Now keep in mind, you got a NATO party getting ready to start in July next month in Lithuania. And so there is Japan, again, really light for heavy lift activity, as always, in and out of Japan. You can see one going out of Okinawa down to what looks to be the Philippines, and then just one little bump up there in Australia, down under. And let's get over here to CONUS, and you'll see we've got what looks to be some activity headed in and out of Hickam in Hawaii, and then in and out of the West Coast, you got Seattle up to what looks to be Anchorage, I believe, and then some stuff out of Texas, and then, of course, the East Coast, as always, because they're bringing things to the ports, putting them on boats, and heading across. So, all right, let's talk Trump for a second, just so you guys can see. This is his latest move. He rolled out of Mar-a-Lago, and he went to, looks like he's done a little bit of campaigning there. It looks like Valdosta and then North Carolina, if I'm reading that right. But then he is up at his home, and then he's going to be heading down here to Miami tomorrow. My understanding is he's going to turn himself in, and also my understanding is that he's going to plead guilty, which is a shocker. All right, we'll talk about Trump here more in just a minute, but this is going to be surveys. We started off down under. Now you may recognize the name of this place right here, Alice Springs. That looks like a transition, but Alice Springs is a very large COVID camp location. in the middle of the country. Some stuff up there towards Darwin. To the left side over near Perth, we drop down to the bottom, south into Melbourne, and the surveys continue. Sydney, Newcastle, we get up here to Brisbane. It quite busy, still continuing to be gathering intelligence information. I don't know. We're just looking at ground data, probably shaping that battlefield. You can see some stuff going on there in Poland. We get over here. Netherlands looks to be very active. Belgium, same thing. We drop down a little further. You can see some stuff there near Toulouse in France. I say near Toulouse. That's a pretty good distance from Toulouse, but it's a reference point for us. Stuff going on in Barcelona. Then we get down here. That right there, I don't think is anything to do with surveys. I think that is recon. That is a drone that has been dropped into our mix, and I've got to look at it closer to see what kind of aircraft it is, but I'm not buying a survey on that one. I think they're looking at ships that are going in and out of that region, specifically Russian assets. All right, then we get up here. We've got this going on today actually over the last 3 days to the southern end of Sweden. Very, very active and busy. Then we get over to the U.S., and it just starts to get really sloppy. Now, let me tell you, the last 3-day number is 169. That's the lowest we've seen since we pretty much started gathering this data. So very low over a 3-day period. You can see still gathering stuff over North Texas, right there to the right side of New Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico border, Los Angeles, near Reno. There's a lot of stuff. Still very, very active. But my concern is once this stops, they've already started processing the data. I can guarantee that. But once this all stops, that's when we need to start paying attention, because they will have everything they need to do whatever it is they're going to do. All right. North Dakota headed into Canada. May or may not be related to fires. It was already doing it before the fires started, I believe. And then we've got little patches all the way down into the southeast, all the way up to the northeast. And in Florida, you can see one running right up the coastline there. That's where we are. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to take us over here to the main board, actually the main mini board, and we're going to start with Flashbang. Looks like he is putting on his jammies or getting out of his jammies around 10 a.m. And I started to say putting on his pants, but I think that may even be questionable. Okay, so it looks like he's got some meeting with some NCAA champs. And then we go down further, and he's talking to who may be the new appointee for NATO. I think that's going to happen in July, if I'm not mistaken. Again, it's a summit in Lithuania, which is pretty doggone close to Russia. And let's see if it continues to take place. But nothing like having all your enemies in one spot if you were Putin, right? All right. So anyway, and just a stone's throw away too. So. All right, we'll move on from that. Let's get on up here to some of the news that's going on. And here is your BOHICA moment. If you're not familiar with that acronym, which, by the way, the military and aviation in general is the amount of acronyms that are out there. They come up with an acronym for everything. In fact, they name programs on the military side just to create crazy acronyms, right? So it's wild how that happens. But anyway, BOHICA means bend over. Here it comes again. All right. So this is the U.S. announcing another additional $2.1 billion arms package for Ukraine. Yes, that is our hard-earned money being sent over there. Now, when I show you some additional news that's coming in and you see what they're doing with our equipment, you're going to be a little bit perturbed like I am. But absolutely crazy. But again, BOHICA moment. And this package is supposed to be or contain Patriot air defense systems, artillery rounds, drones, and laser-guided rocket system munitions. That is part of this one. And of course, you got to pump that money in there so they can launder it and get it into their overseas bank accounts. And so we'll continue to see this all the way up until probably the economy crashes. Which, by the way, if you caught my Monkey Minute over on Patreon this weekend, yes, Germany is now in an official recession, as is the rest of Europe. And typically, we are the ones that lead the way because everybody's dependent on the dollar. They tend to follow suit and fall into their own recessions. Like 9/11, for example, we triggered a global recession. And then in 2008, we also triggered a little recession worldwide. So for them to be out ahead of us in this, when we go into a recession, if we're not already really in one, they just are denying it. But when we hit our official recession, it's going to be very, very bad for the folks across the drink. So, okay, let's move on. All right, this is the Hill morning report. Trump will be arraigned Tuesday. Yeah, they're saying he's actually going to plead guilty for this one because it will be easier. But here's the thing. Let me minimize this or at least shut it down. So the big takeaway, notice here that he has 37 charges, including alleged national security violations, conspiracy, and obstruction of a federal investigation after leaving office. We are witnessing what is a significant double standard. And this right here, when you have 37 charges against you, that's the equivalent of throwing the book at you. There's something is going to stick. The big key is, will it put him in jail or will it get him executed? My thought, if you've been watching the polls, he has gotten a significant jump since all of this has started. He's up to like 60% approval or support against his opponents. And so if, I like I said on Friday, I think they are going to try and terminate this dude because it's the only thing they've got left in their hat to keep him from winning an election. So unfortunately, that is the world we live in right now, and it's, we shouldn't tolerate it, honestly. But all right, I'm moving on over here to the drive. Now, this is a pretty cool little video here, but B-2 Spirit skimming Miami skyline, as they say, looks menacing as hell. The B-2 is back in the air after, remember, it was in basically grounded for 5 months, which they kept that kind of quiet, didn't they? But came back in to fly over Miami. And this thing, look how it's like you just expect the pilots to get out and just go, I'm Batman. It's the most coolest looking thing ever. But this is the video right here, 4.9 million views. And you can see it just banking there in the sky as it comes across that end. It is pretty cool to watch that go across the sky now. Okay, as it dials in, it's quite a remarkable aircraft. And to think this is just the B-2, the B-21 is actually a little bit more advanced or actually a lot more advanced, but very similar design in nature, but there you go, as somebody's head gets in the way. Yeah, dude running that camera was like, yo, you in my shot. All right, let's move on over here to our Star Wars map. As you can see, we got a lot of stuff popping across the sky into the United States. Not literally in the sky, but from a cyber perspective. And it looks like it's just a fireworks show going on here in the United States. And I will continue to watch this, but it just gets more and more interesting every time we dial in. I think we can see and expect to see this thing on the uptick in the coming weeks and months as things heat up in Europe. All right, this is going to be your NOTAMs, just so you can see it is just chock full. Got a big exercise going on here across the middle of Europe, Germany, up into the Baltic region, all the way in. They're pretty much all over this place. We just had a big exercise in Finland and in Sweden, and now this is moved down a little further south. Again, this is the Air Defender exercise. It's got 200 aircraft, 10,000 personnel. It's a pretty big deal. It's the largest thing that we have done over there in Europe in terms of this type of exercise in like 74 years. All right, here you go. U.S. cuts data sharing with Russia under the new START nuclear deal. We'll talk a little bit more about nukes here in just a minute, but basically the START treaty, the new revised START treaty, ended because Moscow decided we don't want to play with you guys anymore. And so they basically killed it. And we have decided, well, if you're not going to give us information, we definitely aren't going to be just continuing to share things in this relationship that has gone south. So what that does, though, is it basically the two sides typically will provide the status of locations relative to its nuclear missiles and launchers back and forth, right? And that's ICBMs, submarine launch ballistic missiles, et cetera. They typically talk, so we don't have any surprises. Right? It prevents us from somebody pulling the trigger with bad information, okay? So just what you need when a war's about to kick off. Then we get over here to this side of it. UK jets scrambled to escort Russian planes near NATO airspace, source government. But the interesting thing is, you just have to keep in mind, now these were the Royal Air Force Typhoons. And I think it was in Estonia, and then Swedish Gripen fighters were on Thursday even scrambled to intercept the Russian reconnaissance and Su-27 fighter jets flying close to where the NATO exercises are going on. Keep in mind, as we reported last week, that Russia is also doing exercises in this same region. So Russia's in here, as is the United States. They kicked them off at the same time. Now, Russia's runs for another 3 days, I think it is, and ours is just getting started today. So tensions in that area are definitely going to be on an all-time high, I would imagine, and everybody is staying frosty. All right. Now, we talked about the scrambling, and let's get over and talk about the super scramble. Fried eggs, as we would call them. The global spending. Now, this one is a data point for you. Global spending on nuclear weapons hits $82.9 billion. Oh, by the way, that's $157,664 per minute in 2022. So for 2022, $82.9 billion in nuclear weapons. And oh, by the way, China is one that is getting big time in on the game. They have increased their arsenal by 3%. So they've gone from like 310 upwards, I think, of like 400 some change. But something we have to pay close attention to. All right. Now, remember, we were talking about the BOHICA moment. We're talking about us giving Ukraine more toys of our, using our hard-earned tax dollars. And here we go. First images of destroyed Bradley fighting vehicles have emerged as this offensive kicks off. You can see some of the images here. As we go down, we'll look a little closer. Actually, this kind of gives you an idea so we can just know what you're looking at here. So 4 M2A2 Bradley vehicles here. So this is one of your Bradleys, another Bradley, and then these two are Bradleys. And one of them looks like it's been damaged, not completely demolished, just damaged. This looks like they bailed out. There's stuff scattered everywhere. And then this is right here. This is what is called a mine. It's a mine clearing equipment. So they will run that thing ahead of these tanks. So if there are any mines in the ground, this thing will hit them and it destroys them. And then you've got here in the middle, this is a German Leopard tank. And yeah, so just kind of give you a general idea, a little bit of a stack up there on the freeway. But this is the equipment we're sending over to them. And I guess it gets a little damaged, they bail out, or they just bail out and then it gets damaged. So yeah, probably see a lot more of that going forward, especially with aircraft. Okay, now let's go over here to this piece. This is going to be your camber flights. Remember, we got a large exercise in Europe going on, but most people are already there. If we look at the origins for the cambers, all of these look to be troop movers for the most part because the size of the aircraft. So we've got one coming out of Rota. We have one Sofia that's over in near Bucharest, Bulgaria. And then we have Baltimore, Washington, Savannah down in Georgia, and then Frankfurt. So that is going to be the locations of these aircraft. Now, these, interesting thing is the exercise is going on up here. So when you see them rolling out in this general area, this is going to be one of our base locations here, as well as these are all base locations, really. So, all right, let's move on over here to Biggs Army Airfield, see what we've got in and out. It looks like we continue. We've got a little 737-500 coming out of Fort Campbell, arriving in Biggs. And then that aircraft went to Tucson from there. And then we've got National Cargo coming out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's Pope Air Force Base, scheduled to arrive. And then another flight out of Fort Campbell. So don't know what's going on. These two are a little larger aircraft. This is a little 737. But we will continue to watch it. Like I said, I'm not sure where these folks are headed from here. Could be immigrant related, could also be troop allocation related domestically. So we'll watch it and continue to watch it, because that could give us an indicator between the survey flights and then you see the movements coming in and out of here domestically. That is really concerning if that is the case. All right, over here to Dover, it looks like we've got a Coletta Air coming out. That's a big boy, 747-400 coming out of Kentucky. Cincinnati, Kentucky. That's going to be CVG Airport. It's the only thing on here that catches my eye, and it looks like that is moving straight up to the front line, probably replacing those Bradleys. Again, that is moving probably equipment. It could have some troops in there, but that is RZE Poland. That's a forward operating base. And then we go over to Ramstein, which is surprisingly low. Given the fact that we do have a large exercise kicking off here. Germany is a big part of that. You got one Atlas Air coming in from Baltimore, Washington. It's a 767. It could be some legs, some troops. And then you got a Spar flight. That's a blue and white dignitary. That one is coming out of Terceira Island. It's the air base right there on the right side, eastern side of the island. And then, of course, this is one of the British birds. In and out. We'll look at those closer in a minute. All right. Now, this is going to be really telling, folks, because this is your forward operating base. And they're probably not running a lot of exercises out of that location because it is truly a forward operating base that if things go hot, this will be a spot that is going to be feeding Ukraine like nobody's business. But notice you got a 747 coming in from Dover. British bird coming in. Let's see who that is. That's not anybody. Now the camber flight from Nuremberg. Looks like they're maybe pushing some troops into that location, and could see a little bit of a troop buildup before things get engaged. The big question is, does it happen before the set meeting in July with NATO, or is this going to be just a I don't know. Let's see. They may be trying to see how Ukraine does, how they perform, and if they need to get engaged. I don't see anybody backing out, that's for sure. So we'll see if it's before or after July, before NATO starts to dig their heels in and get involved. All right, here we go. This is going to be Coletta 747 leaving that location. It looks like a British plane leaving. That is Italian Air Force. They are also rolling out of there. Now, the camber flight, look at all the flights that are leaving this location. All right. And let me see if we've got anything catch my down low. Nope. All right. So, it looks like more like some troop stuff going in and out. Maybe a couple items coming in from Dover on that 747, but maybe some troops. All right. National Cargo. Again, these guys do have a big contract that they just landed. You've got one coming out of Pope, headed to Biggs. We saw that on the docket. And then you've got Chicago 747 headed to Madrid, Spain. And this one here is Chuba. I don't know where that is, but anyway, headed up to Anchorage, Alaska. So that's probably this one right here that we're looking at, I think. Let me see if I got, yeah, more than likely. It really drives me crazy. I want to see where Chuba is now. Let's do this. See if we can get a look at where Chuba is. Japan. Okay, NGO, it's Cheetah, Japan. But Chuba Centrair International. Okay, so rolling out of Japan to Anchorage, and probably picking up some equipment and reallocating it to Europe. The balance sheets are getting sloppy. That's all I know. All right, here we go. Western Global 747 coming out of Anchorage down to Los Angeles. We're starting to see that a recurring flight back and forth down to LA from here. So I don't know what they've got going here in and out of LA, but interesting. All right, Omni. These guys serve many masters. So let's see. Baltimore, Washington down to Fort Hood, and then Anchorage into Kadena Air Base. That's Okinawa. All right, so it looks like they're supporting military stuff, and those are probably troop movers, if I had to guess. And then here is the NATO boys. Let's see what they are up to today. I started to call them something else, but this is a family channel. So, but anyway, looks like they are rolling out of their home operating base location there, and Eindhoven. And then this one looks to be coming out of Madrid, Spain. Destination unknown. They do the same thing as the camber flights. I don't want anybody knowing where they're going. But there you go. NATO boys look to be heading in and out of Europe as usual. Okay. The Brits, they are coming out of home base operations. They've got one that looks to be taking off out of RZE, which is that forward operating base. Another one out of Sofia. And then one coming out of Amari, right? Okay, let's see. All right. Now, we're going to look at the Russians for just a brief minute. I've been starting to add them to our quiver. I've jumped over here to Flight Radar because what I do is I basically click on one of these little jewels, then I roll down. Now, these are going to be dignitary birds, so they're upper ranks in echelon, but I also have their Air Force aircraft that I'm starting to gather. But you'll notice here, you grab this hex code, and then I drop it into Skyglass and under Russian aircraft, and we start to build this database up. If we go look at what the Russians, the old Ruskies, have been doing, let's go military-wise. This is pretty much where they have been. They're down in and out of Sochi, not Sofia. There's Sochi, and looks to be most of it coming out of Moscow, and then one little one up there to the north. But the other piece is you will see in and out of Japan. That's probably going to be an Antonov 124, the big boys that we've been watching, but maybe not. Okay, Southeast Asia, and then notice this one that goes. They're in and out of Taiwan, down to Australia. Now, I do have some AN-124s in that mix, cargo plane-wise. That's probably what we're looking at here from Sydney over into or up to Taiwan. So that's more than likely what we're seeing there, okay? Okay, we'll take a quick gander to see if we have anything on right now. We've got RSD 393. That is airborne. It's the only Ruski that I see currently airborne there, other than the one we just looked at here, which is the same bird. Okay, well, there we have it. But that's it on that side. Now, I did add today the Russian Air Force. I don't know that I'll ever see anything here, but we do catch them over here. And as we continue to monitor them and grab them, we will load them to our inventory there in our assets on the watch list. But this is actually going to show you these are all the military birds that are up. Now, again, you're not going to see fighters except for ones that want to be seen like this little Axis one. For the most part, it's just going to be helos and other like cargo or dignitary type aircraft. All right. Okay, listen, that's going to do it for our SITREP today. We'll just continue to watch to see what unfolds here in the region with these exercises going on. The fact that we've got Russia, the U.S., and NATO all swimming in the same pool. See if anything takes shape out of that. And then, of course, we're going to continue to watch these survey flights. Do they taper off? Do they, pick back up? We'll see what happens. And then lastly, we're going to continue to watch Trump and see tomorrow, he's going to be heading down to Miami, so we'll track that flight and keep you posted. So that's it. You guys keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at monkeyworxus.com.